Hello, good colleagues. The show today is entitled The Conspiracy That Changed How DNA for Ancestry is Studied for Good. The book you are looking at, authored by myself, will play a very important part in our discussion today. I will do most of the talking by reading from a prepared text. What I'm going to discuss is so important that I took out time to write it down, or to write most of it down. And I'll get into it right now. Was there a conspiracy against the Igbo people, as I hinted at the very beginning? I think there was, and I also think you will soon see there was a conspiracy to use DNA testing for ancestry as a weapon against the Igbo people. Some people who connected themselves to this conspiracy concocted and peddled the false and fake news that Igbo DNA has been tested by geneticists and has been found not to be Semitic or Israelite. And this corruption and falsehood has managed or have managed to penetrate everywhere, unfortunately including the universities and media. This is unfortunate because the ivory tower and media are supposed to be manned by serious, diligent, and not lazy people. We smell conspiracy because both those who concocted and those who share this fake news only say, quote, geneticists, but do not ever mention the names of the, quote, geneticists who carried out the purported test of Igbo DNA. Why? What those sharing the perfidious news call DNA testing is in no way a test of Igbo DNA, as you would see shortly. We will proceed to examine what some people that will pass for pranksters, if something as serious as toying with ethnic identity of a nation of over 50 million souls is not what we are looking at. These fellows who set the ball rolling, like those sharing their error, did not mention the names of the scholars who conducted this test of Igbo DNA. We know some real scholars who have tried to combine genetic studies, anthropology, and history to trace the ancestry of groups which claim Israelite ancestry. But the fellows at the root of this sham test did not mention even one of those scholars. So, who carried out this quote test? Some pastors that fancy themselves to be Jews converted themselves to geneticists and purportedly carried out a test of Igbo DNA. They belong to the variant of Christians that at the present time call themselves Messianic Jews. Why did they do what they did? We cannot say we understand all their motivations, but we can go far by looking at what they did and how they did it. These pastors took a flight to Nigeria and collected the specimens of 20 Nigerians. Nigeria has over 350 different ethnic groups or nations. They did not say how they knew who was authentic Igbo and who was not. In America, there are over 1 million Igbos, including myself. Why did the pastors not approach Igbos in the US, but rather went to the ones in Nigeria? They assumed that those in Nigeria would likely be very much weakened by ignorance and poverty, and will accordingly be more easy to be manipulated. When they returned to America, they claimed that they compared the specimens they collected in Nigeria with the specimens of some Jews, and when they did not match, according to them, they concluded that the DNA of all Igbos, well over 50 million persons, if you include their descendants in all parts of the world, is sub-Saharan and neither Semitic nor Israelite. At this point, their names enter the halls of infamy because the DNA of many Igbos who have had their genes analyzed demonstrate clearly that their DNA were Middle Eastern. But there are other matters of grave concern. The American Jews whose samples the pastors claimed they compared to the purported Igbo specimens were people who were more than likely still alive in 2017, just 5 years ago. Even children should have known that people who were alive in 2017 and were living in America could not be the Israelites and Semites who lived many thousands years, who lived many thousands of years ago. Why did they assume that those Americans were the Semites and the Israelites who lived 3,000, 5,000, 7,000 years ago? Why did they not assume that the Nigerians were those Semites and Israelites? You know the answers as I do. But if you do not, you can have them. To the pastors, the only conclusion that could be reached was that Igbos did not descend from Israelites and Semites because their genes, purportedly, according to them, did not match with the genes of people who were likely still alive in 2017. Meanwhile, think again about it. The test was to determine if the Igbos were related to people that lived 7,000 years ago, and these clowns compared the DNA of Igbo to the DNA of people who were still alive in 2017, and when they did not match, these clowns jumped to the conclusion that Igbos were not related to those people that lived 7,000 years ago. Ever seen such clowns before? Well, not surprised to see people who still think like racists in the world. These clowns we are certainly racists. I'll tell you why I believe they are racists, and you will be convinced. To these pastors, it was, quote, blacks who must have gotten things wrong. It was, quote, blacks who must be the liars. It must be blacks, quote, who were confused about identity, but they goofed. They were in error due to several reasons. Even if DNA of Israelites and Semites could be found, and no one has said they have been found, the purported non-matching of Igbo and Jewish DNA could have been saying that the sampled Jewish genes belong to people who did not descend from Israelites and Semites. Ancient history of Jews is very honest. It did not conceal that Judaism brought many peoples who were not Israelites into the Jewish family through conversion. So the non-matching could be telling us the opposite of what the pastors assumed and weaponized against Igbos. They turned it against Igbos because to them, quote, black people couldn't just be Israelites. When these pastors were in Nigeria, because typical Nigerians call all Jews Israelis, and these guys claimed they were Jews, uninformed and naive members of the Nigerian press, who could be anti-Semitic too, erroneously called them Israeli scientists. And quite unethically, they took no steps to correct them. They did not tell them they were neither Jews, nor Israelis, nor scholars, nor scientists, but pastors looking for men to fish. As you can see, the whole exercise smelled fishy right from the beginning. you have seen what the pastors saw as, quote, proof that Jews were Israelites and Semites and Igbos were not. You can see there was no test by these fellows. But strangely, some people, and these regrettably includes individuals we would call real Jews, continue to rely on this sham test, cooked by some Christians who call themselves Messianic Jews, to insult and delegitimize the group that has for thousands of years retained the Israelite moniker Hebrew. Igbo, Igbo, Ebo, Ivri, Ibri are all forms of one word. Abraham was the Igbo. Why were Igbos targeted? Why are there concerted efforts to deny the Igbo people's Israelite heritage? Anti-Semitism is at the root, but we will leave that for now. Crucially, genetic sampling combined with history, serious anthropological and ethnographical studies proved beyond doubts that Igbo people are linear descendants of the Semites and the Israelites. From what we see in Igbo DNA and other methods, we know that Igbo genes were in the Middle East, from where they crossed into sub-Saharan Africa. And this information is in the public domain. This is indicated in a report by a major American Jewish newspaper with very wide circulation. In an article by Samuel Kestenbaum in the Forward newspaper entitled Irresponsible Jewish DNA Test Sparks Backlash in Nigeria and published on 20th August 2017, the seasoned journalist reported Ilona's test shows Middle Eastern, according to a screenshot from the website myheritage.com. Ilona is me, Attorney Remy Ilona. I am 100% Igbo. I can trace myself in Igbo land back 800 years. If I was not in the Middle East at an older time, why does the report of study of my DNA show Middle Eastern? I used the MyHeritage Incorporated report to design the front cover of this little book you must read, to see how we responded to the conspiracy and changed how DNA studies for ancestry is studied for good. In addition to the Forward newspaper report I just cited, the Bedin Sephardic Jewish religious court, which gave an emphatic ruling that Igbos are linear descendants of the Israelites, studied the emerging Igbo DNA reports. Yehonatan Elazar Mota, the president of the Bedin, is a rabbi and a PhD holder. He is a real scholar. He is, alongside Daniel Lee's PhD, one of the few Jews who have begun to study Igbo history, culture, and religion. Michael Levin, an Ashkenazi Jew, is also making a lot of progress in study of the Igbos. Likewise, Yeremiyahu Danzig, who left the IDF after meritorious service 2 years ago. These latter two have not published about the Igbos, but Yehonatan Elazar Mota and Daniel Lees have published, and I can vouch for the authenticity of their works. So the truth is out and available for those who care about it, but not for conspirators. For a long time, Igbos waited for these pastors to offer a public apology and retract their false, harmful, and scurrilous sham test report. This did not happen. It is still being used for fundraising at their website as they continue to pretend that they are looking for lost tribes of Israel. Maybe they are still trying to recoup the expenses they incurred flying first class to and staying in luxury hotels in Nigeria. Igbos were left with no option than to conclude that they got themselves involved in a conspiracy to deny the Israelite heritage of the Igbo nation. Conspiracies and other evils naturally grow if not challenged. To root out not just the conspiracy, but a misconception about what many have called Israelite or Hebrew DNA, I decided to discuss what you will hear hereafter. We may be able to isolate DNA markers that may be in some ways unique to modern peoples. You can find the DNA of the Igbo people because the Igbos are still with us today. That is how many African Americans and Caribbeans have been able to prove that they are Israelites. They are Israelites because they are Igbo. T.D. Jakes, Michael Britton, Rodney Frederick, Amare Stoudemire, Forrest Whitaker, and a host of African Americans and Caribbeans are Israelites because they are Igbo. So we would be able to find the DNA markers of some living peoples, primarily because we can find these modern peoples around. The Igbos are around, so you can isolate their markers. But as of today, 3rd January 2023, there are no Hebrew, Israelite, Roman, Assyrian, Babylonian, Greek, Edomite DNA markers. As strictly speaking, all these groups lived and left history thousands of years ago. And as far as I know, nobody alive today has seen a member of the aforementioned ancient nations or found a skeleton that was clearly and beyond doubt that of a Hebrew, Israelite, Roman, Assyrian, Babylonian, and others. And if one was to be found, by the way, what are we even going to find? These groups were mixtures of many different peoples. Let us use Israelites to think. King David was Israelite, but Ruth, his great-grandmother, was Moabite. So, if you find the king specimen, you will find both Israelite, Moabite, and many other genetic markers inside. Remember, Leah, his ancestress, was an Aramean. Leah, the second wife of Jacob, the Hebrew patriarch. Accordingly, even if a DNA test shows that a test taker has genes which align with genes found in the present-day Middle East, which was where some of the above listed believably lived, we still have miles to go to show the test taker descended from the Israelites or any of the other groups. To be sure that the test taker is Israelite, his culture has to match Israelite culture. I said Israelite culture. That culture you read about in the Bible, nothing else. And we must face the facts here. Present-day Igbo culture, Menana, matches Israelite culture 100%. In fact, they have the same cognomen. The Israelite culture was called Menana. Things religion you shall do in the land. The Igbo culture and religion have no other names other than things and you will do in the land. My DNA is Middle Eastern, therefore I am an Israelite. The African Americans I mentioned, and many like them, who are of Igbo descent, are also Israelites. DNA has led them to the modern peoples they are connected to. And when they go through studies like this, they begin to remember fragments of culture that we are not altogether lost. This video will serve a lot of good purpose. As you have seen, the people involved in these conspiracies, I made sure to isolate them and list them. Jews were not involved. These fellows were only people who were pretending to be Jews. And on this note, I rest my case, but not before appealing again, subscribe to my channel. get my books on Amazon. If you do both, you will be empowering me and the men and the defenders to get these books published and printed in Nigeria for our brothers and sisters operating in a very weak economy. Thank you. Have a beautiful and great 2023. Thank you.